Hey guys, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean, and we got some difficult times going on. I'm sure that some of you are sequestered at home for your safety, and we're kind of getting to that point here as well. We are going to try to do live every week from here because we can do it with a skeleton crew without anybody else in the office. But in the meantime, kind of around that, we're going to try to post some cool, fun things every day from different kind of facets of people that work here at the company, from just art for relaxation to we're thinking maybe we'll take a few projects we've done here for live and we'll see if we can't just finish working on it. It'll just be a casual, you're hanging out possibly in my studio if I get sent home and just working with me where we won't have moderators. And it might be at weird times of the day or even on the weekend, but we'll all get to kind of get through this together without losing our minds and still being creative, right? So what we're going to do along that vein, Jerry's Artorama as a company, we decided that we need some kind of fun weekly challenge, right, Katie?
Yep.
So what we're going to do is this week's challenge is greens. You can use greens in whatever thing you want. It doesn't have to be St. Patrick's Day related, although happy St. Patrick's Day to you fellow Irish. But just because this episode is greens and we're thinking of green and spring is coming very early for some reason, that's what the challenge is this week. Now with these weekly challenges that we're going to do, you can win up to a $500 e-gift card. There will be prizes. First, a $500 e-gift card each week. Second, $250. Third, $100. So 3 gift cards. So it's in your best interest if you're home just to be creative. So at the end of this episode, we will remind you about this again. And we will give you guys the link where you will submit those. Right, Katie?
Mm-hmm.
So remind me at the end so I don't forget. And we'll put that on there.
And then also, if they aren't around for that, I will put a post later on this evening
Okay.
where they can find it too.
Okay.
It'll stay there.
So in each week, we'll give the challenge on this show. So that's where you'll hear what the challenge is for next week. And then the next week, like next week, when we come on, we are going to give the winners from this week's challenge. Okay. So you have that week and that's it. Do you know what time they're going to be selected? Is it going to be that day before the show?
As long as they have them in before I get here on Tuesday morning.
Okay.
We'll pull winners Tuesday during the day and announce them
Okay.
during the show. So as long as they
All
have
right,
them in
so-
by Monday night.
Yeah. So or get them in by 8 a.m. Tuesday
Yes.
morning.
I won't be here that early.
No, neither of us are here because we're always here late. So, so that's what's going on, just to kind of keep you guys, encourage you guys to be creative, a little bit of incentive. So, green is the challenge for next week. All right. So, in talking about green, we have all about greens this St. Patrick's Day special, and we're going to be using Charvin Extra Fine Acrylics because Charvin, as you guys know, if you've watched the show, does all sorts of colors because they're kind of that plein air painting company, just being French. They're very into colors that you can use straight from the tube that you don't have to use a lot of mixing. But we did the show last week where we talked about color and pigments and swatching and how you can learn a lot from looking at the paint you already have. It helps you gain some knowledge so that when you do buy more paint, you have some of those fundamentals that you're already kind of basing your knowledge on to make smart paint purchases. With all paint that you went on the jerrysartorama.com website, there's a little kind of yellow box. It looks like a little legal pad right by the price. It's the tech notes for the item. And what that does is when you hover your mouse over that or click on it, it actually gives you what the light fastness is of that paint, what the pigments are that are in that paint, just different information about the paint, what series it is. So it gives you added information that helps you make smarter purchases, all right? So in that vein, and if you didn't see last week's episode, I highly suggest it. That was JL142. That is a good way to kind of gauge things. Now, greens are tricky. Everybody that's ever tried to make green knows this, because the yellow is yellow, but it's not like always the ideal yellow to make a green with. And blue is blue, not always the ideal blue to make green with. So we're going to look at each of these colors, not only for the sheer enjoyment of green because it's St. Patrick's Day, but for kind of breaking it down into what are the pigments that are involved with each of these paints. And then we may try to actually make one of the ones already in the tube with other colors and see how successful that is, to kind of get you to understand that sometimes when you have these, you know, you've got your primary, your secondaries, your tertiary colors. When you're going away from the primaries, sometimes it's a lot harder to mix than just a primary, and a primary makes that secondary, okay? So let's get started. What's the easiest way to do this from the overhead, Katie? Do you want to just do it from the overhead so they can see and I can put them on these?
What would you like?
I think that would be nice because then they can see like bigger swatches and I can move the panel as we go. We might just be able to kind of swatch it out, and I'll tell them about each color as we go along and what the pigments are in it.
Let me get you up there. Sorry, I'm doing this, I think.
No, that's fine.
You're just going to have to straighten out just a little bit. And if
No,
that's too
fine.
close, let me know.
No, I think that's just fine. All right, cool. Let me get where we're at here. So I will move this over. Perfect. Okay. All right. So the first color, and these are all just different colors of green. They're just very cool. This is Absinthe Green, which is the kind of that really pretty minty green. Let's take.
Marilyn said that's her favorite Charvin Green.
It's just,
beautiful.
I mean, look at this. Now, you notice if you kind of pull that out, you can actually see kind of that little bit of yellow in that. Let's put this right here, okay? So that is the Absinthe Green. Now let's look at the pigments that make that, all right? When I look at that, I think that's a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, and some white, right? That's what you assume because it's that nice kind of high color. Where did I put my big red marker? There we go. All right, so we've got PY74 for our yellow, P for pigment, Y for yellow, 74. It is Aerolide Yellow. Okay, that is a bright mid to greenish yellow pigment, okay, which we can definitely see that greenish yellow going on in there. It has fair to good tinting strength. So what that means is you're not going to want to put as much white in it, right? Because good to fair means that that white will overpower it a lot more easily. All right, so keep that in mind as far as that yellow, because that's going to hold true with this, even though this is a combined pigment. Now the other pigment in it is PG. What's that? Pigment Green 7. That is our Phthalo Green. And the PG7 is actually BS, which means blue shade. Okay, so those are the two colors that make that. There's actually no white in this. Now this color is an opaque color. It's a series 2, so it's kind of closer to the bottom of the price range. It has excellent light fastness. So the Phthalo, we know, because we always say that there's the titanium white's the punch you in the face white, right? Phthalo is that punch you in the face green. This green is. Anytime there's a phthalo, that it's like it should have a crown, because that's like the King Mac Daddy of pigments that's stronger than anybody else. It's the WWF of pigments, right? Deep green, blue shade, heavily staining, overpowering tinting strength, unless it has what they call extenders in it, right? So what that means is if you had this tube of paint and this tube of paint, and one was just straight phthalo and then the other was other things, probably this is going to have a lot less real pigment in there, because it's so overpowering that if you filled it completely up with pigments, and didn't use some extenders, when you went to mix it with stuff, it would just kill everything that you mixed, all right? So they have to do that with some pigments. Yes, Amanda.
If you're gonna write the pigments under, could you also add the name of the
Yes.
paint above?
Well,
Or under or whatever?
I'll just put it, yeah, I'll do it above it next time. I need to look at the spelling. All right. Okay, so that's our first one. Very, very pretty color. All right. Let's, Anise Green. I love this. It's so yellowy and happy. You can really see almost like a red undertone under that. Can you guys see that little bit of kind of, it's hot, right? Okay, now this is semi-transparent with very good light fastness. Interesting thing, PY74, which is the same Aerolide Yellow. PY65, which is Hansa Yellow. Okay, and what that Hansa is going to give us is, Hansa is a brightly saturated deep reddish yellow, which is why we're seeing that little bit of kind of red undertone there, in kind of where we can see through where it's a little transparent. Good tinting strength, heavily staining, Hansa is. All right, and then PG7, that Phthalo Green blue shade again. Okay, so although these are pretty closely related, other than adding that Hansa yellow, look at the difference in the two. Much more blue looking, much more kind of higher, hotter green, right? All right. And if people have questions while I'm just going to do this so we can kind of see the one right before it, and then...
I think Anise is my new favorite green.
Isn't it beautiful?
It's so
pretty.
beautiful. I think I might need to do some
pretty.
monochromatic acrylic paintings. Sorry, Ryan, I'm bringing home more paint.
Oh, boy.
In general,
We're not...
It's not much.
how fast does Charvin acrylic dry as opposed to like other brands? I know it depends on how much you put on it, but
Well, no, because it also depends on the humidity. It depends on if you're adding mediums. Most acrylic, unless it's got retarders in it, is going to dry similar enough where it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be close enough.
I don't think I've ever noticed it drying noticeably faster or slower than most other acrylics.
No.
It's pretty much on par with what you expect.
Yes. Okay, Chromium Oxide Green. Oops, I guess I forgot to put it over that. Now with that, we can see how very opaque that is, right? Chromium Oxide Green is a little entity in and of itself. It is its own pigment, which is the Chromium Oxide Green. As I'm misspelling it.
oh, I have a really good question.
Yes.
Josh is wondering if there are multiple pigments listed in a paint, are they usually listed in order of highest to lowest percentage of the total?
I'm going to surmise yes. Because Phthalo Green obviously would have the least amount of pigment in there. But I guess it depends on the manufacturer too. I don't think it has the hard, fast rules like food where, you know, the first ingredient is what the
Right.
main thing is. But it stands to reason if you look at the anise color that's probably a legit guesstimation. Okay, so Chromium Oxide Green, dull yellowish green to mid green. This is kind of a mid green for the pigment. It's very staining and it has a weak tinting strength. Okay, it's duller. It seems like it's not a very shiny kind of reflective green like some of these other ones are going to be that are transparent and semi-transparent. It's very weak against whites like titanium. So just a good thing to know. It's a very beautiful mass tone, but when you go to mix with it, it tends to subdue other colors just because of that kind of dullness of the pigment. All right, green gold. I love this color.
I love that color.
I'm just gonna do that right there so we'll see.
I'm just not gonna move it
Okay.
and let you move things around.
I think that's way easier. I don't have a problem with that if they don't have a problem with that. Make sure I got all the. Look at this.
I love all the greens. I'm not gonna lie.
I know, but this is just a very. It's like baby food green with class. The
It looks
peas.
like
Like
maybe
pea soup.
something, but
It
it's
does.
not food.
No, I'm not sure what you were feeding your baby. All right, so and I've got now acrylic.
There's gonna be lots of oohs and ahs on this one, I think.
Yes. Okay, so green gold. All right. Now this is so this is a opaque, which relatively opaque, excellent light fastness. Anybody want to take a guess? PW6 is the first ingredient, first pigment. Going once, twice.
It's so hard not to answer to let them
I know.
answer.
Well, I'll leave it there, and then we'll come back to it. We'll put the next ones on here. Okay, PY111, Hansa Brilliant Yellow. And PG7, which is our what? Phthalo Green. Blue shade, okay? PW6. I'm guessing there's enough lag where nobody has weighed in, right? Okay, so
Getting there.
Got a lot of white.
Yeah.
it is
Question
white.
mark? Tie white?
It is, oh wait.
Titanium white. Okay. All right, so titanium white, Hansa Brilliant Yellow. With the Hansa Brilliant Yellow, what it says about that. See if I flip this too fast. Is so the titanium white is used in a lot of colors, guys, because it is a pure neutral white. It has the least color variance. Some whites are warmer, some are cooler. Sometimes it will have a blue undertone. To me, it does in oils because of the oil medium. Titanium white tends to be very neutral in acrylics to me because mediums can change kind of how some of that refraction of the color works. Always seems very neutral in titanium white to me. Hansa Brilliant Yellow is a greenish yellow that packs a lot of punch. Hansa is a very bright staining yellow. And then obviously the Phthalo Green we've talked about. So obviously that has not a lot of Phthalo Green. In a little bit, we'll see just a straight up Phthalo Green color with that PG7, and you will be able to understand how much of it's been tempered with those lighter colors to get them that way. Okay? All right.
Jeff Barlow wanted to know, when you said a red undertone, is that making it slightly gray almost?
No, it actually has a little bit of, I'm going to see if I can lift it up. Can you see on the canvas where the edges are? It's kind of yellowy, but it looks a little reddish too, okay? That is called a red undertone. It's not straight up red, but it has that kind of hot sensation, right? I think that's...
It's almost orangey where
Yes.
it's really, really thin.
Right, and that's what they're saying. As a reddish yellow, it's going to be more orangey. All right. So, green of Nice. Where's the Nice? Oh, this is a nice color to put next to the Absinthe, because look at this, is going to be pretty. Let's write it down first. Well, that's much bluer. To me, that's a minty kind of a...
Did you skip one?
Green of Menton?
No, green of Nice is what I'm on now.
But
did I switch over from a different? All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, I did. I went past green gold. I'm sorry. We'll do that next after the niece. Yeah, I did green gold. Okay. So in looking at this, does anybody have any ideas of what's probably going to be in this color?
Patty said toothpaste.
It does look like toothpaste, doesn't it? Was it Aqua Fresh that was that color, I think, Patty? Okay, so the green of Nice. It's opaque, series 2. Excellent light fastness. It's pretty light, so anybody who was guessing titanium white, that was smart. Pigment Yellow, 111. That was our Hansa Brilliant Yellow. Thank you guys for catching the one. Okay, then PG7, which is what? The Phthalo. And I'm misspelling it because I'm trying to hurry. Yeah, we'll just go with Phthalo Green, blue shade. Okay. So you can see there's probably, these are the same colors in that green of Nice as there are in the green gold. Okay. From the left of your screen to the right, same colors, obviously very different amounts, right? Because that is way kind of bluer looking, probably from more of that phthalo green added in. You said Menton. Green of Menton is the one we missed. Let's do this so it kind of keeps these apart. This is a green. This is like little kids' grass green, right? When you get out your crayon and go to color the grass, it was always like this really bright green, which no one has ever seen as actual grass. Even AstroTurf. It's always the color that you go with. All right, so green of Menton. Semi-opaque, which you can kind of see through that there. It's not as opaque as that. Series 2, very good light fastness. PW6, your titanium white. PY101, that brilliant yellow. And again, PG7. So our last 3 colors were the exact same pigments, guys. But look how different they look by adding different amounts. This is why when people are like, but yellow and blue make green, I'll just mix it myself. This comes from people that use color all the time, that know how to balance it very specifically to get very different results. All right. We'll go on from here to green of Provence. Oops, and I'm spelling it wrong. I've not had enough coffee today. And I drove in from Northern Virginia this morning, so I'm little on the, now the Nice, the Menton, the green of Provence are their own specialty colors that they base on French countryside colors. So these are colors that, where we say sap green and things like that, chromium oxide green. Obviously, those are colors you're going to get in other brands. These are unique to Charvin because they're their colors that they're trying to match with their actual kind of French countryside. All right. Any guesses on Green of Provence? We're throwing a couple new pigments in here. We do have the PW6, which is our titanium white, which I'm just doing TW because at this point we've talked about it. Then we're going back up to a yellow that's in the anise and the absinthe. It's PY74, which is the Aerolide Yellow. Then this is a whole new thing. PB29. Any guesses? It's a color that you always have to, most instructors tell you have to have this color for starting out with painting when they give you a list of colors. It is,
Cobalt blue.
no, ultramarine blue.
I was gonna guess that first. But I like cobalt.
Yes. Now, ultramarine blue, depending on the manufacturer, can look different ways. And they do that by how they actually treat the pigment before they're grinding it in the paint. Ultramarine is a pigment. Pigment is typically a bright, deep blue, which that is for almost every manufacturer. But it can be anywhere from a deep, more violety blue to a deep, more of a mid-shade blue, okay? Once in a while, you'll get a greenish shade. There's a couple brands I don't particularly like their version of ultramarine because it is too green. And to me, ultramarine should either be that very deep blue or it should be a little on the violety side. And I actually have multiple manufacturers that I use those ultramarines in both acrylic and oil because one is violety and one is more deep blue. Because I use them both, but I use them differently, right? Ultramarine blue as a pigment has good tinting strength. So when you're using it to make lighter blues and using it for mixing, it's a relatively strong color. All right, that's not overpowering, but it's just got good strength to it. All right, I'm gonna slide this stuff over so we can go with the next. Let's keep the nice there. It's the green that's nice. See, nice. Mm-hmm. Why do you have nice green? That's weird. All right, Green of Provence we did. So now we are on to Hooker's Green.
Ew.
It's somebody's last name, and they were a watercolorist. And this is a color that generally you don't see outside of watercolor.
Yeah, it's surprising they have it.
It doesn't play well with oil. That's why you don't get it in oil colors. Okay, but it will work in an acrylic, with the acrylic binder. So they've actually done that Hooker's Green, and it's because they are a paint company of people that do landscape painting, right? So that's why you would want that watercolor shade. Opaque, it's opaque. It's a series 2. It's got excellent light fastness. It's a really nice kind of a, to me, it's a nice evergreen green kind of that you could use as a base. Look at, see, that's nice. And it's kind of got a warm undertone, which is nice for that, you know, when you're painting in plein air, you want warm and cool greens because the warm greens go on the sunny part, right? The cool greens go on the shady part because that just works subconsciously for people that are viewing that work without them understanding that. All right, so PY74, which is that Aerolide Yellow that we keep seeing pop up.
Rhiannon in the YouTube chat has a quick question about what makes a paint archival. She was asking if it has to do with the acrylic binder or is it pigment?
Okay, so we have multiple shows that talk about this. And that's something that I wanted to bring up with this. Last week we talked about pigments. We've got multiple shows that if you go to the description of this show and you hit see more in kind of the comments under where the description is under where you're viewing it, it pulls up a list of 2 different show documents. One is in order from JL1 to now JL143. The other one is by topic. One of them is like extended learning or something like that. We do a black and white episode that talk about all the blacks and whites in oils, acrylics, and watercolors, that talks about the pigments that are in them and why they're good for specific things and why they're not good for specific things. I guess more the strengths and weaknesses of it, so that you're not buying all these different colors of blacks and whites and then they don't do what you want them to do. We did a student paint versus professional paint and talked about that, exactly what you're asking. What makes something archival? What makes something light fast? The pigment itself works with the binder. Some colors that have a very good light fastness in something like oil that can protect the pigments a little bit more from fading may not work at all with watercolors, and vice versa. So, and some don't, like with acrylics, don't work well in an acrylic resin. They don't play nicely with it. So you won't find all colors in every single medium. You will find a pretty good array of them though. But the light fastness has to do with the pigment itself and, somewhat with the binder and how it works with light over time. Does it degrade that pigment? Does it still have really good strength? It doesn't fade away or disappear, okay? Like when we call something fugitive, that means it is not light fast at all, that it just disappears over time. With acrylics, it's really rare that you find things that are not light fast. It's usually with things like fluorescents, okay? Because those are designed not to be used for fine art over time. They're designed more for ad work, like photography or something, or illustration, where an image is taken and it doesn't matter what the archivability is of those pigments over time. All right? Does that answer it pretty well, Frida, do you think?
I think so,
Okay.
yes.
So, but definitely go back. If you're home and you've been sent home from work or school or whatever, this is the perfect time to go back and review. If you're new to Jerry's Live, or you've watched Jerry's Live, but maybe you didn't know, we've been on for now 3.5 years, it seems like. I mean, it's been not 3.5, but it's close. Give us another couple months and it's 3.5 years we've been invading your artistic life. So this is a good time to go back and catch up on some of those episodes. Not all of them are on YouTube because we only did it to Facebook, for the first 1.5 years? But they're there. They exist there. And that document has links to all of them, okay? All right. And the document is there for you to be able to access. It can't be, you can have it and pull it down and use the links, but you can't like overwrite it because that would ruin it for other people. So I always, once in a while, I'll get people that want to do that, and we can't. All right, now this is strangely one of my favorite colors, which you know how I like brighter colors. By the way, with that Hooker's Green, it's Ultramarine. So we're taking this, the Hooker's Green, the Green of Provence at the bottom has white in it, but the same pigments. Hooker's Green is that without that white. Okay, I'm probably a little heavier on the blue versus the yellow over the Green of Provence. I love this khaki color. This is just such a nice kind of neutral, almost grayed looking green. Look how pretty that is. I know it's brown and weird, but it's a nice,
Talking about like
neutral.
2 out of 5 days of a week, that color is my shirt.
Yeah, right.
I love that color.
Yeah, the color I've got on right now under this, yes. Opaque Series 2, excellent light fastness. The reason I like this, and when I wrote down the pigments, I was like, oh, that's why I like it. It's got all the iron oxides in it. Ooh. Okay, so PY42, which is yellow iron oxide, which is what? It's when you've got yellow ochre, that's the pigment in the opaque yellow ochre or semi-opaque yellow ochre, okay? Dull reddish yellow to yellowish orange brown for the pigment. Just depends on kind of how they want to prepare that for the paint. Staining with medium tinting strength is that yellow iron oxide. PG17, Chromium Oxide Green, we just looked at that. which that's how this gets more of that kind of flatter look. Kind of a little bit duller with the color. Then we've got PR101, Synthetic Iron Oxide Red. That's what makes it more that neutral color, because you've got green and red with a little bit of yellow in it. So you're kind of almost at the point of where if it was darker colors that you were mixing, you'd make kind of that chromatic gray or black. But because these are lighter, you're getting this kind of really nice, lovely neutral green. And there's a lot of iron oxide in all sorts of colors. It's just, if they can vary the amount of calcification, the calcining that they do with it, they can make it look orange to violet to red and to brown. So that's why that's a fantastic. Move it up.
Just a tiny bit. They can't see that bottom
Oh, I'm sorry. Ta-da.
pigment. Yep, there you go.
There you go. Okay. Move it up so it's there for the next. Oops, I gotta get my next color. Meadow Green. And yes, it looks just like you imagine it. Let's move these over here so I'm not having to dig up under this. All right. Meadow Green is semi-opaque. Series 2, excellent light fastness. Most of the colors that they use for greens have, usually, I think everything we're showing here has at least very good light fastness. Reds are where you tend to start having lesser light fastness with some of them. So you don't have those really with greens, so it's not an issue. All right. Now, with this, we've got Pigment Yellow 111, which is that Hansa Brilliant Yellow that was in those really bright colors that we looked at. Then we've got the PG7, which is that Phthalo Green. That's the blue shade. Okay, so probably this is definitely more of the yellow than that green. We've got that color. These are the same pigments here with that Meadow Green. This just has a little bit of white, and it's probably a little heavier on that phthalo than that Hansa, okay? So it's a cool way to look at. It looks two very different greens, and it is, but it's just in balancing those pigment amounts and then adding that little bit of white for some opacity. All right, just trying to make sure we get this in on the screen. All right, medium bright green, which they also call vivid bright green. A nice, very yellowy green. It's a little bit cleaner than that Meadow Green as far as just that little bit more yellow, a little bit brighter. I guess I call it cleaner. Just okay. So, but it's the exact same pigments as Meadow Green. So the PY111, which is that Hansa Yellow Bright. And the PG7 Phthalo Green Blue shade. Oops, not BC. All right, so that's the medium bright green, and then the Meadow Green. That little bit bluer, right? Now, in knowing that, you might be able to, if you've got a medium bright green and you liked the Meadow Green, you could add a tiny bit of phthalo and darken it up. So that's something that we can play with in a few minutes. All right. Okay. Phthalo Green Blue, or no, I'm sorry, Olive Green next. Is everybody seeing colors that they like? Does anybody like have a favorite? Is everybody pretty big on that?
Ian was a big fan of the hookers.
I like that whole combination that's going on right now.
Yeah.
But he also does watercolor, right? I think he's
so.
Yes, he's our European watercolorist, so he's really
I believe. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. That's the Ian I'm thinking of from the Facebook group. All right.
Oh, yeah. What are you doing? Amy, it's a little wonky. Can you straighten it up just a little so we can...
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I think it's the camera, not you.
There, I just don't want to push the stuff off the, Okay, so now what the information we have on the website is different than the information we have here. And I'm going to go with what's on the website because this only says one pigment number, which would be wrong.
Which one?
It says PY83, which is a yellow, but that's not only one yellow pigment. So I'm going to say that this might be where they've got other, that's one of the colors. Yeah, that's one of the colors here. So they just don't have all, they put that on the front listing because the labels don't have the room. So this is what it's made out of. PW6, the titanium white, right? Pigment Yellow 83, that says on the label. The Aerolide Yellow. PG7, which is what? The Phthalo Green Blue
One
shade.
of my favorites.
And PB15. What's that one, guys? We've talked about it enough on the show. Phthalo Blue. Okay, so we've already talked about these other colors with the Phthalo Blue, and phthalo is just the shortened version for phthalocyanine. Okay, it's just the chemical name. It's not anything toxic. That's why they went to phthalo, because it just sounds safer, even though it's safe and it's the same
Not
thing.
cyanide.
Yeah, and plus it's a mouthful to say. Phthalo blue is that intense deep blue. When it's in a mass tone, it can have a reddish or greenish undertone. So sometimes you'll have like an RS for red shade, a GS for green shade. Bright blue when you use it for shading, and it's heavily staining and very overpowering. Okay, and then one more color that is going to blow everybody's mind because it just seems like an odd PV 13 Pigment Violet 13, which is a transparent violet. So it just gives it kind of that deeper undertone in the paint. All right. That's the olive green. All right, now we're to the phthalo green blue.
Scoochy.
Yeah, I will. Hold on. I think I'm going to move this water because we don't need anything to go anywhere.
We had lots of requests for pictures of that when you were done with it in the group afterwards.
Okay.
And maybe the notes.
That's fine. Yeah.
The notes.
Notes.
It's my
This is just kind of messy. Okay.
Amy, do you know offhand if the Charvin Acrylics makes a straight Aerolide Yellow paint,
It's if they do, they're not going to call it that because nobody calls it that for a
Right.
thing. They may call it. The Aerolide is no, but we will get to look at what the Aerolide Yellow is because their French primary yellow is the Aerolide Yellow pigment. So we'll get to look at that at the end. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So this is the Phthalo Green Blue, and again, they can change this by heat with the pigments. So this is much greener than just a typical, you know, some of the other Phthalo greens. So this is PG7. This is what we're seeing in all this stuff. And this is the Phthalo Green Blue shade. I won't put the BS. Okay, so you can see where that's coming from. Where being mixed with that very bright Hansa yellow, you're getting that little bit of greener color for it. Okay, this one actually, well, we already talked about the heavy staining and tinting strength. All right, so let's look at the Phthalo Viridian now. Let's see where we've got this on the, all right. All right, so Phthalo Viridian. Let's make sure we've got this up here. See how that's that slight bit lighter. It looks that little bit bluer than just the regular Phthalo Green Blue. Just a slight bit lighter. Well, okay. So they say that the other one is semi-opaque, which part of it is because it's so dark in mass tone. Okay. It still can be thinned out and it's more, a little bit more semi-transparent. This they're saying is transparent. This is a series 3. Excellent light fastness. Look what's in it. PW6 is our what? Titanium white. PG7 is the what, guys? This is the Phthalo Green Blue shade. So the Viridian's got some white in it, and it's probably tempered a little bit heat-wise to make it a little touch bluer to get that Viridian color. All right. Sap Green. We're getting down to the line. We've got 3 more greens. And then we can take some, if people are, got some questions, go ahead and start compiling those. That's a medium. Bright green, which we've already done.
Because we only have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, go ahead
So
and start.
Why don't we get through those 3,
Okay,
and then when you're doing some of the mixing and stuff, then we can take the questions.
that's fine. It looked like we actually have 2 because
Yeah.
one was I put back down over there without realizing it. Okay, Sap Green Transparent. It's a series 2. It's got very good light fastness. Sap Green is a favorite of people. Now, Sap Green, we've talked about colors that are just a trade name, right? Not a pigment name. With that color show that we did where we used a magenta, we used a cobalt, we used a lemon yellow. Sap Green is a trade name. It's not the same pigments all the time. So different brands are going to look very different. Now this is transparent, but because of the mass tone, can you guys see that? When I really flatten it out there, you can see that it's much lighter. It looks very dark in mass tone versus, and blacker, versus what I can see here. Okay, this is PG7, which is that Phthalo Green Blue shade, right? It's in everything. And PY83, which is that Aerolide Yellow. Now, in how it's listed, look how we've got this. PG7, PG83. I'm guessing that probably was right because those were how those were listed online when he asked if it was by the amount. The first ones that are listed are probably what it's got more of. Seems to make sense for that one, doesn't it? All right, and the last one to me is not really green, but it's a pretty name. And with all the stuff we have going on, the yuck and stuff going on, we could use a little tropical green. To me. Plus, I know Katie's gonna love the color.
I love it. I know exactly what it is. I love it.
Because it's really an aqua. It's beautiful. Okay. Look how pretty that is.
That looks like a shamrock shake.
Kinda.
Okay.
To me, it looks more like a sky blue, like a really tropical sky, you know. Okay, so PW6, which is our what? Titanium white. And PG7, Phthalo Green Blue shade. Okay. So I'm seeing something here. The Phthalo Viridian and the Phthalo Green Blue shade have the exact same pigments in them. So while people ask questions, we're going to see if we can take the Viridian and the both of the two Phthalo Greens, the Viridian and then the regular Phthalo Green, and some titanium white that I've got. And we're going to, oh, well, we may have to use zinc white because I guess I don't have a titanium white. You know what? I think they were out of the titanium whites when I placed my order. Do you know where there's any around there?
Cheryl was wondering how sap compares to olive green.
The sap green has the phthalo and a different yellow than the olive green. The olive green has 5 different pigments in it, Cheryl. It has titanium white, Aerolide Yellow, Phthalo Green Blue shade, Phthalo Blue, and Transparent Violet. The sap green has Phthalo Green and the Aerolide Yellow. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. All right.
We're in the barn.
All right. So I'm just going to mix it up here because it's just as easy for me to.
Oh,
Okay. So go ahead and shoot with questions while I get the Phthalo Green and Phthalo Viridian. All right. So here is the Phthalo Green Blue.
Are you going to mix these with a little bit of cool and a little bit of warm as well?
I don't know. We're going to see first if we can use it to make it so that we can prove that if you kind of know some about the colors. All right. So let's see what the Viridian does.
I love a Viridian. I just love all these colors.
Oh my
It's my
gosh,
happy
that's
place.
so strong that like I touched it in it and it started already. Okay, touch. Look at that. Tiny bit. We need a tiny bit more, don't we? To get to this tropical green. Let's try a tiny bit more. That's really getting close. Check that out. I'm not going to push it over until I have this mixed because I want it to be the reveal. The big surprise. It's really close. I'm going to put a little bit more in. That might be a little much. We'll see. Okay, so that was our Phthalo Viridian. Here's our tropical green. What did I do there? That beautiful tropical green color that I wanted to buy, but because I read what was on it, and I was like, so hey, that Phthalo Viridian's a little bit darker. That is almost the exact same thing, isn't it? Let's try it with the regular Phthalo blue-green shade. and we'll see, because that's a different variation, right, than the Phthalo Viridian. The Phthalo Viridian already had a little bit of the white in it. So let's see if we can very carefully, because these two look different. This looks a little bluer, so I want to see if I can pull a little bit.
Little phthalo goes a long way.
Yes. Let's see, this is much more green. So that Viridian is definitely bluer. It's not too far off. It's more kind of turquoisey, you know? Yeah, it's definitely more turquoisey. But we'll put it down with it so that they can see.
There's something oddly satisfying about watching you just scrape and blend in the paint.
It's like I've done color swatches. It's like frosting.
Mm-hmm.
Ian wanted to
Don't
know,
like it.
what was your
No.
opinion of the Perylene Green?
From who? From what manufacturer? Or Perylene Green just as a color itself?
I think just as a color itself.
I think I've got it in watercolors at home. I like it, and I like the Perylene Maroon. I like the Perylene colors.
What is it?
It's a pigment.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it like a darker green? Or
Almost black.
Yes.
Ooh.
It makes a nice, you can use Perylene Green's perfect for using as like really deep black shadows. Because it's not black, so it reads as black, but it's just a really deep green. Okay, so here's that, the regular phthalo. It's not far off. Check it out.
That's pretty good.
Now, how can I do this? Because we talked about swatching last week. The reason I know this is from actually physically getting my paints out and swatching all of them. You don't have to use big globs like I just did. I did that so you guys could see it much more easily, what I was mixing with what, okay? And this is the perfect opportunity with your home and you don't want to participate in a contest. Get your paints out and swatch them. Your watercolors, your acrylics. Okay, see, that's much bluer. I'm just showing that this is two very different looking things, but I could almost make the exact same color with them, with white. But see how the beauty of Charvin is you can buy any color that you want. You don't have to take the time to mix it, especially if you're under deadlines with commissions or, you know, you just don't have time to sit around and try to mix colors because you have a limited time to paint. This is where lines like Charvin come so much in handy because it makes it easier. Then you can just lighten or darken them depending on the value that you want to get out of it. But if you've got time to really play with paint, or you just really have that fixed budget that you can only afford to use by X amount of colors, reading these pigment numbers in those boxes are going to help you say, I really love this color and I want to buy it, but I can only buy 10 colors. I can only buy 5 colors. But I want to make some colors like these lighter colors. Now you've got the ability to look for those other colors that are more the primaries, like the yellows or the greens, and know what have they mixed to make this like this. Do we want to see with this the PY74 if we can get? Let me see which one we had. Hold on, I'm looking to see. This is 74. Okay, let's try to make the Absinthe Green. What do you think?
Yeah.
I can't promise anything because I think they might put a little white in there and they don't say, but we'll see. It might not be. It just might be so little of that Phthalo Green. Okay, so let's go overhead. I've got the PY74, which is their French primary yellow. Okay, this is the straight Phthalo Green that they've got. I'm going to say that we just need a tiny bit. Let's... Yeah, I think there has to be a little bit of yellow in that maybe because that looks like the anise to me. That looks just like the anise. Check this out. Does that not look just like the same color?
Come down just a tiny bit. There you go. Well, pretty darn close. Interesting, you can actually really see kind of the
Look at that.
Yeah.
Now that has the Aerolide in it too, but that looks pretty darn close. I was trying to make the absinthe. I'm going to put a little bit of white in that and see what happens though. Let's put a lot of bit of white in it. I need a little bit more of that green. Oh, this is terrifying because it's going to overwhelm it. Are there any other questions? I know we're getting close, but now I'm obsessed. Well, I want to make it. Oh, we're getting close.
No, everybody's just saying thank you for the awesome show. They love this. They love the color mixing. They love learning about all the different pigments.
Ginger tells us to take care of ourselves. We working on it, Ginger.
We will. Now, just so we, maybe filming at odd places. So if we film at my house, I'm going to warn you, if you're afraid of birds, I've got a talking bird. So...
There's nobody there to beep her.
No. And she's usually well behaved, but sometimes, you never know. That's really close. Can we show it?
You can show.
Right before we pan out, can we show both panels again one more
Yeah,
time?
I will zoom out and you can see all.
So here's my color. It's just a little more yellow.
So close.
I could put just a little bit more green in that. But see how close you can get? If you know some of the pigments to do it, I could have just done that little tiny bit more blue. I was just terrified it would be get too dark and be too much. But see, you can get close to stuff if you kind of know what's in paint. So we wanted to see, well, I kind of have blotched stuff on this. We'll zoom out and we'll see if I can, I'll hold it over it. All right. There we go. So see, those are all the greens that they've got that are pre-mixed, ready to go. Nice, pretty, all the way to that pretty tropical green. I guess it's like tropical waters, right? Where it's kind of that blue-green.
That's what it looks like to me, yeah.
And we'll wait until these dry so it'll be a tiny bit more matte. It won't be so shiny to take pictures and post them in the group. If you're not a member of the Jerry's Facebook Live group, you do have to be a member of Facebook. But you can ask to join, go to groups, type in Jerry's Live. That will bring up the application. You just need to answer a question. You have to answer that or it won't go through.
Right.
They won't get your membership to that.
And
Yes.
speaking of, don't forget to remind them about the
Yes.
weekly challenge.
Yes.
As we do have the link. The girls are going to pop up there for you. So
Okay. So the girls are going to pop up a link starting today to keep you guys busy and artistic and thinking about some positive stuff instead of kind of the negativity that comes with feeling trapped somewhere. We are going to do a weekly challenge and there are going to be prizes. There will be 3 prizes and they're huge. A $500 e-gift card, a $250 e-gift card, and a $100 e-gift card. Each week. Okay? And we've done contests before and we've not had the best participation and some people got some killer prizes. So I'm saying, this is great for your mental health. Do something. The content is just something that's green. Use greens in whatever way you want. It can be anything you want. You could do a green portrait. Doesn't have to be a leprechaun. Just saying. So every week we will do that. We will announce it on Jerry's Live here, what the stuff is for the next week. And at the end of the show, is that what you wanted to say, Katie? At the end of the show, next week, we will announce the winners from this week's challenge that we talked about today. Has to be greens at 8 a.m. Tuesday morning. That's when the cutoff is, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday morning. And then those will be graded so that day, and then we'll know that evening on Jerry's Live who the winners are. So good luck, guys. And you can even share these in the Jerry's Live group as well. Remember to use hashtags because then we can find it. So if somebody wants to search for it, this episode is JL143. So just put hashtag JL143 and then everybody will be able to look and see what people have done that have to do with this episode. Okay? So everybody stay safe, stay healthy. We will be coming to you with some sort of neat, fun, enjoyable, maybe relaxing, maybe, I don't know, just stuff because we're in it with you guys and we want you to stay safe and healthy but creative as well. Okay?
On that note, if they are wanting to know, since we're going to be going live a little bit more random times and stuff like that, if they hit those 3 little dots up in the top corner of their screen, they will be notified when we go live.
Okay, so as the lovely lady behind the camera suggested, hit the 3 dots
Or the bell on YouTube.
Or the bell.
on YouTube. Well, and not all of it will be. Some of it will be. It'll be live on Facebook. Then they will upload it after the fact to YouTube. So when it hits YouTube, it won't be live. Now, when we do this, it's going to be just dirty raw filming where it's a phone and one of us. So we may not have it where we can see what the comments and stuff are. Katie is going to try with some of us to actually moderate at the same time, but she may not be able to, just depending on what circumstances are, or, you know, God forbid if somebody gets sick. But we will go back and answer questions if you have any. So don't feel afraid to leave comments or, you know, questions, concerns, happy things, you know. Tell us what you guys are doing.
Is really excited to meet April.
Oh, yeah. April's a hoot. So, all right, guys. What?
Literally because she's a bird.
Yeah, she is a bird. Oh, yeah. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Next week, we are doing long-handled paintbrushes. We are going over all the types of long-handled paintbrushes. Long-handled paintbrushes are specifically for easel work. So oil and acrylic and things like that where you're going to be standing back more from your work. We will go over all the styles of brushes in long-handled brushes, take questions, all the different bristle and hair mediums that are involved with making those brushes, and what makes a good quality brush. So tune in next week for that. And we really hope you guys take care. Okay? Stay safe and enter the contest. See ya.